Good evening, everybody. Hello. My name is Jennifer, and I'm a teacher with English in the City Prato. Welcome tonight. We are doing Focus Activity 810 Inventions. I want to thank everyone for tuning in this evening. It's been a great way to pass the time talking in English about different topics. For those of you who have been joining me on a regular basis, we have gone on trips. Hello, Katya. How are you today? We've gone around the world. We've done different activities like shopping and visiting pubs. We've also traveled back in time talking about our past. And tonight we are talking about inventions. Once again, my name is Jennifer. And this is Focus Activity 810. Katya, thank you so much for joining me tonight. How are you today? I hope everyone is doing well. Yes, I'm okay. I can't complain. I've had a little bit of problems with my allergies for the past few days, but I'm feeling a little bit better today. Thank you. Also, it's hard to keep on track because one day it's very, very warm and beautiful and sunny. And then maybe the next day it's cooler, the wind is blowing. And so you never know what clothes to wear or how you should dress when you go outside. Just when you think that spring has settled down and is here to stay, all of a sudden the weather changes and you're putting a heavy sweater back on. But I guess that's the way it works. Once upon a time, there used to be 4 seasons. Now there's a mix of changing weather, and we never really know what season it is. Hello, Andrea. How are you today? Thank you so much for joining us this evening. As you join our focus group tonight, please just say hello. Type your name in the conversation box and let everyone know that you're here. For those of you just tuning in, I am Jennifer. I am an English teacher with English in the City in Prato. And we are live today. We're live this evening on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. I know that restrictions have been lifted somewhat, so there is a little bit more freedom. So that might be why there's just the 3 of us so far this evening. We'll wait and see if anyone else decides to join us for this focus activity. I know. Andrea, we were just saying that it's difficult now to decide what to wear because the weather changes so rapidly. Even though we should be in full spring mode, we see that we still have sudden days where it's breezy and cool, almost cold, and we never know exactly what to wear. In fact, I've tried to change my wardrobe several times, and it seems that every time I put a few sweaters away, it's time to take them out and put them back on. So tonight's focus activity, level 810, we are talking about inventions. What is an invention? If someone here can give me a brief description in a few words, if someone asks you, what does it mean to make or to create an invention? What is an invention? And why is it so important? Because there have been radical inventions that have been very, very valuable to human society. And then there have been other inventions that have been almost a double-edged sword. There have been positive and negative consequences of these inventions. Exactly, Andrea. Not only is it difficult to decide what to wear, but whether or not you should water your garden. In fact, one of my sons, he cut the grass this afternoon. And usually after you cut the grass, you turn on the water a bit. But if it rains, there's no need for that. Thank you, Katya. Katya is getting us back on track in our focus activity. This evening, we're talking about inventions. An invention is something new and maybe useful. Exactly. It's something that has never been made before. And a lot of times, this invention can be a device or a system or some kind of tool that has lasting benefits. Can you think of any inventions recently in recent history that have had tremendous impacts on society? Some inventions, yes, have actually been a fantastic breakthrough. Can you think of any invention in particular that has completely changed society as we know it? There have been several over the course of history, but maybe a few more recently that have had tremendous impacts on the world around us. For those of us who are a little bit older, we can remember a time where there were less devices, less equipment, less technology. And so life was a little bit different. Mobile phones, electricity, excellent examples. Thank you very much. I don't remember days before electricity, and I doubt you do either, Andrea. But once upon a time, turning the lights on in your home was not as easy as flicking a switch. You had to light a fire. You had to burn oil. Mobile phones have been incredible devices that have changed society as we know it. And we see that even from one year to the next, with the advancements of technology, we see great impacts also. The airplane, yes. And the washing machine and the dishwasher, fantastic inventions, if you asked me, some of the most important. The airplane changed travel as we know it in the modern world. Before the invention of the airplane, or more specifically, before the invention of the jumbo jet, traveling to the other side of the world or traveling to another continent wasn't something people did. You did it to emigrate, to completely change the course of your life. Once, however, planes made it possible to travel for fun, to go on vacation and then come back home. The computers, internet, and skyscrapers, yes, with the invention of, or the progress made in architecture, people no longer needed to build out, they could build up. And so cities became very prominent. You no longer needed acres and acres or meters and meters of land. People could live one on top of the other. And we see the effects of that nowadays as well. Okay, thank you everybody for your fantastic examples of inventions that have had huge impacts on society in the last century at least. And in this focus activity, we are going to discuss some of these famous inventions. We are going to review our passives. Yes, our fantastic passives, past, present, and future. And then at the end, time permitting, we are going to present an invention. So before we get started, you all know how I love a good grammar question. What is a passive? And what's the difference between a passive and an active sentence? I love this question. And I think the passive tense is so important because it does. You can take a simple sentence and change it completely. Roundabouts. Oh my goodness, Katya. Oh, you're talking to someone who grew up in society where there were stop signs, there were four corner stops or traffic lights. Roundabouts are a fantastic idea if drivers know how to navigate the roundabout. If they just stay right smack in the middle and go wherever they want, then roundabouts are not effective. Roundabouts are absolutely a wonderful idea, but it's the drivers themselves that have ruined this advancement in traffic. All right, so I asked you guys a question about forming a passive sentence. How do you form a passive sentence? This is one of those questions that I ask all the time because it seems that people don't like to remember. How do you make an active sentence a passive sentence? And why do you want to when it's so easy just to keep it active? We notice also the use of passive sentences where? Where do we see a lot of passives? If we think about the evening news or the daily newspaper, this is where we use passive grammar. And why do we use passive grammar? Because it sounds nice, because it's a little bit more entertaining, because it's mentally challenging to distort the grammar structure of your sentence. The object becomes the subject. Fantastic, Katya. Thank you so much. When we have an active sentence, for example, the man drives the car. I've changed my active sentence. The man drives the car. The object, the car, becomes the subject. And we now we use the verb to be, past participle of the verb. Fantastic, fantastic. And Andrea adds also that we see examples of passive tenses in the newspaper, on the news. Why? Because we're drawing attention to the action itself. It doesn't matter who did it, or we don't even know. So that's why often news is written in the passive, because we want to focus on the action itself. And in every passive tense, there is the presence of the past participle. Fantastic, you guys. You must have a very, very good English teacher. Now we're going to talk about some famous inventions. On your screen, you see 6 images. Do we know what these inventions are? A telescope, a telephone, a camera, an airplane, a television, and a mobile phone or a cell phone. These are 6 examples of famous inventions. We're going to go around the group. So if anyone else has joined our focus activity this evening, please say hello. Just type your name in the conversation box. Let us know that you've arrived. And we're going to talk about which invention, in our opinion, so keep in mind there are no right or wrong answers, which is the most useful, the least useful, the most interesting, the craziest, the most important, or the most expensive. Take a look at the 6 images on your screen and then let us know, in your opinion, which is the most in these categories. So you can type your opinion in the conversation box on the right and let us all know what you are thinking. For example, if you ask me the craziest invention was the airplane. The fact that man believed that he should fly is an incredible and crazy idea. Why should man believe he could fly when he's obviously attached to the earth? He walks, he runs, he jumps. But man decided that he needed to fly. And so he invented a structure, a machine to help him do that. So in my opinion, the craziest invention is an airplane. Now I leave it up to you. In your opinions, which is the most useful or the least useful? The most interesting, the craziest, which I gave my contribution, the most important, or the most expensive? Then, in your opinion, the most useful is the airplane. Okay, I said that the airplane was the craziest invention. Katya says it is the most useful. Does anyone else have an opinion? Keep in mind that also the value of these inventions could change over time. If we notice the invention in the top corner, which is the telescope, right now we don't really need telescopes. So now that invention is the least useful right now. But at a time when it was common practice to use a telescope because travel was on the sea, or travel was by sea, the telescope was something that was very, very important and extremely useful. Which is the most interesting? The least useful is that kind of telephone. I know. I remember those telephones, Andrea. Do you? We're referring to not the mobile phone that everyone has now tucked in their pocket or in their bag somewhere. We're referring to the rotary phone, where you actually had to put your finger in the hole and spin the wheel around in order to dial a number. Fantastic. That was like, I had a big yellow phone in my kitchen when I was growing up. There was one phone in the house with a very long wire. The most interesting is the TV. Very good. I agree. I don't think anyone here is old enough to remember the invention of the television. No one here is that. But my mother told me that when televisions first came out, people believed everything they saw on the TV. They didn't realize that you could tell a story, that watching TV was almost like reading a book. Everything you saw did not make it true. I think that the most interesting invention is actually the camera, to take a photograph, to see something and want to keep the visual memory of that for a later time. I think that's an incredible invention and very, very interesting and curious that people would want to keep a visual memory. Now, looking at the same 6 inventions, we've added 3 more. We have the space shuttle, or which would be the invention of space travel. We have electricity, which we have mentioned before, and the automobile or the car. And we're going to consider these 3 questions together. How have these inventions changed since they were originally produced? What changes have been made to update each of these products? Are they still useful, or have they become completely obsolete? We've already mentioned that maybe 2 inventions that have become somewhat useless, if not obsolete, is the telescope, which nobody uses anymore, and the rotary telephone, which I don't think anyone remembers how to use it. No, Andrea, you remember when TVs were released on the market? Fantastic. Fantastic. Andrea says he's taking us down memory lane with him. Andrea remembers when televisions were made available to the public. and that there was a contract so that two families could buy a television together. Thank you so much. I remember I had a television in my home that was black and white when I was younger. We had two televisions. One was in black and white. That was the one in the back of the house. And then in the front of the house, there was one in color. Oh my goodness. Someone believed that the people that they could see on TV were in the TV. I remember hearing that as well. Katia adds a comment that often, well, not often, but in the beginning, when people were watching television, they actually believed that the people were inside the TV. That's like you looking at me thinking that I am inside the computer. I know, it is funny in a way. And like the first movie, Katya, when we see a train arriving and scaring the viewers. Oh my gosh, I've seen that footage. The duplex was a contract with the telephone. Really? So two families would share a telephone. What a fantastic concept. I know in the States, a long, long time ago, I would say probably in the 30s and 40s, people didn't have individual telephones in their homes. There would be a phone possibly at the corner, or there would be a general store, and there would be a telephone. Or if there were a building, there would be one telephone in the building, but having your own personal phone wasn't common practice yet. And now in a family of four, everyone has their own phone. Wow. Oh my goodness, times have certainly changed so much. So taking a look at some of these inventions now that we have on our screen, which ones have changed dramatically? We've already talked a little bit about the telephone, how much the telephone has changed since it was invented. The television as well. What about the automobile? The automobile has not lessened in its value to society. It was a nightmare. Katia says, yes, I had this contract, and when my uncle was on the phone, my family couldn't call or receive calls. That's why the telephone call limit was so important. You had to say, listen, no more than 5 minutes on the phone. Even though we had a personal telephone in our own home in the 1970s, my father still believed in that 5-minute limit. He said, if you can't say it in 5 minutes, it doesn't need to be said. So we had 5-minute phone calls. And then he would come over to the phone and just put his hand right on the telephone and say, he didn't even give you a warning. Say, oh, you have to hang up, you have to hang up. No, he would just come over and go click. And so you knew that the phone call was finished. So cars we've seen, even though has been incredible progress with the automobile, we still see that cars are a necessity. They're a necessity in everyday life, or at least in the Western world, let's say. Yes, there are places where they don't use cars the way we do, but we see that in the society that we live in, without an automobile, it makes life extremely, extremely difficult and inconvenient. We're going to consider some invention vocabulary. Here we have a list of words on the left side of your screen. A patent, to flop, to take off, to come up with an idea, obsolete, and feasible. So on the left side of your screen, you have a list of terms or vocabulary words. And on the right side of your screen, you have the definition. We want to match the left to the right. We want to match the words to the correct definition. So let's start from the first one. A patent. What is a patent? And some of us may also know why a patent is so important when we're considering an invention. On the right side of our screen, we see the definitions: capable of doing, to achieve popular success, to completely fail, useless or outdated, to think of, exclusive legal right to manufacture, use, or sell an invention. So let's go back up to the top of the list again. A patent. What is a patent? And why is it that if you have an invention, a patent is so important? I don't have that mentality, though, to actually invent things. So you have to be extremely creative, and you have to be able to see a need that society has, and a way to meet that need in a way that's efficient so that everybody can benefit from your invention. Because if you invent something that only a small part of the population can use, then it's not really as effective. Like inventing a medicine, or we've talked about the other inventions before, or even inventing a food. If you think about some of the most mundane, it's like a copyright. Thank you very much, Andrea. A patent is the last. Thank you, Katya. Exclusive legal right to manufacture, use, or sell an invention. Why is it important? Because if I invent something, but I don't have the legal right to sell it, and then Katya comes along and says, wow, what a great invention, Jennifer. And then she makes the same thing. She can go and sell it and make a lot of money. And if Katya doesn't have a patent, then Andrea can come along and say, wow, Katya, what a great invention. And he can make one too, and he can go sell it. So if you have the exclusive right to sell it, to produce it, you get the credit for it. And you can also make money from it. To flop. To flop. If an invention flops, what does that mean? And yes, there have been some inventions that have flopped. I can think of a few, some recent ones actually. I don't know if anyone remembers, it's important, the patent is important because someone can copy your idea. Exactly right. I don't know if you remember, was it last year, or it must have been last year, or possibly 2 years ago, where those spinners, all the kids had those spinners on their fingers, they were spinning all over the place. And the woman who actually invented the spinner did not have a patent, so that all the toy companies made it. She didn't get any credit for it, and she did not make any money. To flop means completely fail. Can anyone think of an invention in the recent past that has completely failed? I should get a patent for my paintings. I forget that they're on the wall behind me. Every once in a while, I take them down, I put them up, and I'll fix them. I haven't had too much time during the quarantine to paint, but I'm trying. I'm trying to make time for myself a little bit every day. If we can think of any inventions that have flopped in the recent past, I have one. The 3D television. Does anyone remember the 3D television? There was one year where there were 3D televisions all over the place, and they cost like 2,000 euro, 3,000 euro, and nobody bought them. That was a major, major flop. To take off, on the other hand, so the patent means we have exclusive rights to our invention. To flop is to completely fail. To take off. Andrea, I don't think anyone's copying my paintings anyway from these lessons. Wouldn't that be incredible? Oh my goodness, all these paintings look just like mine. How is that possible? Because they're taking English lessons. in my living room. So if an invention takes off, what does that mean? Like a plane. What definitions do we have left so far? Capable of doing, to achieve popular success. Useless or outdated, to think of. Those are the definitions we have left. And right now we're looking for the electric car. But Katia, I have mixed emotions about electric cars. I know nobody buys them, but I think they're a great invention. I really do. That has been a flop. But I don't think that's because it's not a good invention. I think it's because there's big money behind oil. Because if you think about it, if we didn't have cars that ran on petrol anymore, that would be a huge blow to the oil industry, I think. But that's just my personal opinion. To take off means to achieve popular success. Exactly. Yes, you agree with me. So you think electric cars are a great invention too. Just think if every time you pulled up to an auto grill, instead of filling it up with gas, you could just plug your car in. It would be so much more efficient and so much more eco-friendly. There'd be less pollution and everything if we ran on electric cars. I think it would be a fantastic idea. Okay, so to take off means to achieve popular success. I don't know if you guys remember when Steve Jobs introduced the nano iPod. I remember when the first iPod came out, I was like, oh my goodness, an iPod, what a fantastic idea. And then when the nano came out where you could fit it in the little pocket of your jeans, fantastic. I know takeoff does mean to take off in an airplane, but an idea can take off too. Your career can take off too. A relationship can take off too. There are a lot of things that can take off, Andrea. So you can take off in an airplane and travel to a distant land. You can meet the right person in your life and just you'll fall in love and the relationship just takes off. You can invent something fantastic and it will take off and be very successful. Yes, electric cars, that's a problem. They cost too much because nobody buys them. If people bought them, the price would go down. Ooh, I just give you the next answer. To come up with an idea, to think of an idea. We're down now to our last two vocabulary words. Obsolete and feasible. We said that in the previous slide that the telescope and the rotary telephone were no longer useful. Oops, did I just give you the answer again? So obsolete means we said that the rotary telephone and the telescope were obsolete. Why? Why were they obsolete? But there have been absolutely some fantastic inventions that people don't even realize what an impact they've made. For example, in fact, I have an invention right here. You see this? This is a Post-it. I didn't even remember my life before Post-its. Whoever invented the Post-it was a genius. I have Post-its all over my house. Obsolete means useless. That's exactly it, Katya. Useless or outdated. It doesn't mean that once upon a time it wasn't a fantastic thing. The rotary phone was absolutely wonderful, and so is the telescope. But right now, nobody needs it. Nobody uses it anymore. Okay, and then they become outdated. So once upon a time, they were extremely useful. But then with advancements in technology and so forth, they become outdated and useless. So we see now that feasible is capable of doing. Another fantastic invention that people don't realize how much our life has changed because of it is plastic. Plastic was another incredible invention that completely changed the direction of the globe. Before plastic, clothing was all natural fibers. Before plastic, you bought your food and all of your dried goods or fresh goods wrapped in paper or in glass or in cloth bags or sacks. And then once plastic came out, and that has had huge impacts on society and on our ecosystem. Ooh, we're getting into the grammar part of our focus, from active to passive. We said in the beginning of our focus activity that to make a phrase passive, the object becomes the subject. So we're going to take a look at some inventions. We see 4 images on our screen. What are they? The automobile. We're going to find out which kind of automobile. Blue jeans, Coca-Cola, and the potato chip. Of these 4 inventions, which is your favorite invention? I'm going to stop sharing the screen just for a minute so that I can then pull up another resource. We're going to take a look at some inventions, and where is it? Here it is. And we want to put the description of these inventions in the passive. Okay, can everyone see the screen? Can everyone see the inventions on the screen? Let me see if I can make it just a little bit bigger for you. Let's see here. All right. No, that's too big. All right, let's take a look at our first invention. We have the potato chip, which was a fantastic invention. I mean, what would you put on the bar if there were no potato chips? When people come to your house for dinner and you're like, oh, let me just put something in a bowl. What would you put in the bowl? What would you eat when you were watching Netflix if you didn't have any potato chips? I actually prefer popcorn, but some people like potato chips. All right, let's take a look at our invention, the potato chip. We want to look through these sentences and put them in the passive. The first sentence we have, George Crumb accidentally invented the potato chip in 1860. As you come up with the passive sentences, you can type them out and leave them in the conversation box. We'll try to do the shorter sentences so you won't have to type out the entire paragraph. But if we take a look at the first sentence, George Crumb accidentally invented the potato chip in 1860. How could we make that active sentence a passive sentence? You see that potato chip is the object. So in order to make it passive, the object becomes the subject. I am so happy the 2 of you are here this evening, Katya and Andrea. I really am. Do you know what it would be like to do this focus without any input at all? I mean, I love focuses and I love English. So the potato chips were invented in 1860. Thank you very much, Katya. So we see that when we take an active sentence and we put it in passive, we can eliminate the original subject altogether. So we don't have to put the chips were invented by George. We can simply eliminate that information because it's not important. What's most important is that the potato chips were invented, and that's what we want the reader to focus on. Let's take a look at another sentence. The same for you as well. You prefer popcorn. Are we talking about popcorn? All right, let's take a look. One day, a customer complained that Crumb had cut his fries too thick. Let's just take the first part. The customer complained that Crumb had cut his fries too thick. So we know that when we put something in the passive, we also need the past participle of the verb. Notice that we have to also consider the tense of the original sentence. Okay? We have to consider the tense of the original sentence as well. So if our active sentence, a customer complained that Crumb had cut his fries, oh, yeah. Thank you, Katya. I like to do focuses with you too. No, there are some people I look for when I come online. And if they're not here, I'm like, where are they? Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you so much. The two of you are so loyal. So the customer complained that Crumb had cut his fries. Do we want to put this in passive? Maybe. So we see here that the fries are the object. So now the fries become the subject. How do we put this sentence into the passive? This is actually great practice. And this is not as easy as it seems, I think, for people who aren't used to doing the focuses live like this, because you're listening to me talk. But then on the other hand, you're asked to write things down. So you have to comprehend on one level and then translate it into another action, which isn't always easy. Because I know how difficult it is for me if people dictate to me in Italian, I have to write in Italian. Or better yet, if people dictate in Italian, I have to write it down in English. That always makes me very... The fries of the customer had been cut too thick. Fantastic. And this is what we want to notice. That Katya took the sentence, the fries had... Crumb had cut the fries, which is past perfect. And then when we make the passive, we have been in our sentence. And this is very important. This is also one of the ways how the active changes to passive, especially in the perfect tense. You have to throw been in there. So the customer complained that his fries had been cut too thick. Let's take a look at another sentence. Oh, in fact, it's already 7:45. We may not even get through the other inventions. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Annoyed, Crumb decided to serve him a new style of potatoes, which he sliced, peeled, and fried extra thin. Notice the tense of this active sentence. The tense is past simple. Crumb decided. What did he do? He sliced, peeled, and fried extra thin. So now, what is the object in this sentence? The object is still the potatoes. The potatoes now become the subject once again, because the action is being done to the potatoes. And let's put that in the passive. I know, who thought we could ramble on about potato chips for this long? Potato chips are a fantastic topic of conversation. Okay, so what did Crumb decide to do? He decided to slice, peel, and fry. He sliced, peeled, and fried the potatoes being the object of our active sentence, now become the subject, and so. If we also keep in mind the fantastic thing that Katya did when she formed her passive sentence before, but the had been cut too thick. So what the potatoes, we could also keep it in the past simple in this case. The potatoes were sliced, peeled, and fried. The potatoes were sliced, peeled, and fried. And that's how we take another sentence and we put it in the passive. Let's do, thank you very much. Thank you very much. If we keep the same tense of the active sentence, for example, if it's past simple and active, it's past simple passive. If it's a perfect tense in the active, it's a perfect passive. I know there's a lot of words in there. So the potatoes were sliced, peeled, and fried extra thin. Fantastic. Let's do one more and then we'll go on. Otherwise, we won't have time to finish our focus. All right. To Crumb's surprise, the thin and crispy potatoes pleased the customer. Oh, to Crumb's surprise, the thin and crispy potatoes pleased the customer. Okay, the object now is no longer the potatoes, but the customer. The customer is the object. Now the customer becomes the subject. And also, what's the tense of our active sentence? The tense is past simple. The thin and crispy potatoes pleased the customer. So now the customer, when we turn our active sentences into passive, we have the verb to be in the past, was or were, and we have our past participle. The past participle of please is pleased. So the customer was pleased. The customer was pleased by our thinly sliced fried potatoes. And that's another example of the passive. I know forming these passive sentences is really mentally, it's a lot of hard work. So I appreciate all of your effort. We're going to share the screen again. We're going to pull our focus activity back up so we can continue with our focus. All right, we're going to take a look at these inventions here. Future inventions, things that could possibly become, that might be useful in the future. Can everyone see on their screen the future inventions? We have personal jetpacks to help you get from one place to another as fast as you can. Oh, which second sentence? Oh my goodness. Let's go back. Let's go back and let's pull up our resource. And let's go over the second sentence. Let me pull it back up, Andrea, just a moment. Okay. The second sentence here, in 1853, an elegant resort in Saratoga Springs, New York hired Crumb as a chef. Yes. Yes. New York hired Crumb as a chef would be the active part, would be the active clause of our sentence. So we could say in 1853, an elegant resort. No, in 1853, Crumb, who is the object in this sentence, becomes the subject. New York hired Crumb as a chef is past simple. Crumb becomes the subject. Crumb was hired as a chef in 1853. Exactly. Yes, we could put that one in the passive, but they didn't underline the verb. So I just completely, I can't just canceled it from my vision. And I just went on to the other sentence. Thank you very much, Andrea. Yes, the second sentence as well in our activity could be turned into a passive sentence. The second part of the second clause, no, the last clause in the sentence is the active part of the sentence. New York hired Crumb as a chef. In order to make it passive, Crumb being the object becomes the subject. Crumb was hired as a chef. And there you put it in the passive. Thank you very much, Andrea. Does anyone else have any other questions on this activity? Because otherwise we can go on to the rest of our focus. Now we want to use the vocabulary from our previous slide. Remember we had a list of vocabulary and the definitions. Now we want to talk about possible inventions, and we want to use the vocabulary that we reviewed in the previous slide. What was some of the vocabulary that we went over? To flop, to take off, patent, use, obsolete. And here we have a list of future inventions, if they haven't already been invented. We have personal jetpacks, and we see an example of this in the picture. Food in a pill, robot maids, an underwater city. Actually, I believe they've constructed an underwater hotel. A flying car. And a time machine. These are our 6 future inventions. And for the last part of our focus, we want to consider whether they will take off or will they flop. Which are the most feasible? What does feasible mean? Feasible means it is possible. Is it even possible to make a time machine? I know that they do it in movies all the time, where they make time machines, people travel back and forth through time. You're welcome, Andrea. But time machines, I don't know how possible they are or how feasible they are to invent. And which would be the most useful? Okay, Katya, thank you so much. Katya says, in my opinion, the most likely to flop is a personal jetpack. And there I happen to agree with you. Even though the idea of having a jetpack and jetting around downtown Prato, because maybe the sidewalks are slippery or there are too many people, it would be chaos. Complete chaos if everybody had a jetpack and was flying around the city. Can you imagine the accidents? People flying into buildings? I think that would absolutely be a flop. Of these 6 inventions of our screen, which, in your opinion, is the most useful? Are any of these inventions actually useful or practical? In my opinion, there are 2. Food in a pill is extremely useful. Has it already been invented? Oh my gosh, really? Food in a pill meaning that you can just take a pill and you can get all the nutrients you need from that pill, or maybe a set of pills. That's the idea. Because if you think maybe in places where there's drought, where they don't have any animals. But those are also places that are extremely poor. So if you don't have any money for animals and food, I doubt you'd have money to buy pills, but that's another story. But considering that if you live in a place where you can't grow any food, then food in a pill might be extremely useful, because then you could take your pills, get all the nutrients that you need, and you wouldn't starve to death. There's an idea. Which do you think is the least feasible of these inventions? Which is the least feasible? I think a time machine is completely impossible. I know that there are these not physicists, what are they called? These very intelligent people. There are some products that are in pills, yes. But I don't know, house robot maids, I love them. I would too, Andrea. In fact, I'm first in line. As soon as they have a house robot maid, I am first in line to get mine. Because right now, I am the house robot maid. I am the house robot maid. And I would love to have a robot maid all of my own, so that people would not look at me as the house robot maid. Because I know that there are some pills, Katya, that you can take that are supplements, but you're not supposed to substitute food for these pills. Robot maids would help out a lot, wouldn't they? I spend so much time, especially because we're all in the house together. I could just literally walk around the house and just clean all day long, not eat, not sleep, not anything. Just walk around the house and clean one room to the next. And as soon as I finish one room, I could go into another room. As soon as somebody leaves a room, I could get up and go into the room where they were. And I could literally clean 24 hours a day. So having a robot maid, in my opinion, would be absolutely fantastic. I would love that. I would absolutely love it. So I think that the least feasible is the time machine. Now, considering these inventions, during our focus activities so far, we've talked about inventions that were extremely successful, not as successful. We've considered them in the passive. What do you think makes an invention successful? What helps an invention to become successful? Because even though we mentioned electric cars before, how much we agree with electric cars just simply don't sell. They don't sell. Why not? So how do you sell an invention? There have been several people recently, in today's society, modern society, that are extremely successful. They're very good at selling their inventions. How do you do it? Is it enough just to have a fantastic idea? Just say, you know what? I'm going to make a Post-it. I'm going to take a piece of paper and put some sticky stuff on one side. Not the whole piece of paper so it all sticks out. No, just one side. So you could lift it up, and it's a reminder. Was it just enough to have a great idea, or do you actually have to sell it? And that's something very, very interesting to consider, that it might not be enough just to have a great idea, that also your presentation of that idea is as important. You have to get people to realize what a good idea it is. And then, of course, with the right marketing and advertisement, you can convince people that they need it. Sometimes they actually do. For example, there have been certain inventions through the course of history that just make sense to have. For example, I don't have a television in my house. Okay, it can become successful if it's easy to use. So it has to be efficient enough and simple enough for everybody to be able to understand it, because you have to appeal to the masses. You have to get everybody on the same wavelength. So if it's something that everybody can use, then you'll have a better chance at becoming successful. Okay, you guys, thank you so much. We've come to the end of our focus. What did we do in tonight's focus? Grammar-wise, we went over our passives. How do you make a passive sentence? Well, you take the object becomes the subject, and then depending on the tense of the active sentence, you have the verb to be in present, you have the verb to be in past, and if it's perfect, let's not forget our past participle. Exactly. So the price is also important. It needs to be easy for everyone to use and also affordable so that the majority can afford it. And tonight the argument we covered, the topic we discussed was inventions. And we went over vocabulary that goes with the idea of inventing, whether something can flop or take off. Also, the importance of a patent if you have invented something. And then we considered also future inventions and how useful or not useful they could be. Listen, I want to thank everybody so much for joining me this evening. It was a great way to kick off my evening before I head off and enter the daily routine, or the daily evening routine now, of winding my day down to a close. But I want to thank you so much for joining me this evening. It was great talking to you all about inventions. And remember that I am live every day on YouTube, on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. We are live every day. Thank you so much, Katya. Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you, everybody else who has been watching this evening. And have a great evening. And I will see you all next time.